Welcome, everyone. This is Michael Dodderer, and I'm here east of the Mississippi. And this portion of On the Dot's being brought to you by Euphoria. And if you don't know about Euphoria, you can check them out. It's under Euphoria Science, and it is changing how we look at nutrition. So instead of just what we call blind nutrition and trying to guess what vitamins and nutrients your body needs. Euphoria specializes you in it's we call precision nutrition and designs nutrition based on your own unique DNA. So with that, let's kick off our show. We've got two guests, and this is a historic day because we're now streaming live on LinkedIn. So for whatever reason, I want a shout out to Reed Hoffman for thanking all of the podcasters out there that now we can stream live on LinkedIn. I think you have to get approved, and I was in the approval process for the past year, and so here we are. And very exciting because we're going to bring on two special guests on the dot. The first that I want to bring up is my good friend and former coach with the Los Angeles Raiders. Has spent over 50 years in professional football, and it's an exciting time to be in football. He is, there's a changing landscape of what we call American football. And it's really exciting. And last night, there was a big game last night, and I'm going to bring him on right now. Coach Robiskie on the dot. And Coach, welcome. Are you there?
I'm here. I'm here, Mike, and I'm again happy to be here. Happy to join you. And it's always fun to be on the dot. And I think I enjoyed it a little bit more when you start off talking about Euphoria. Euphoria is an interesting product you got going, and we had a wonderful conversation yesterday with the young lady that you introduced me to. Pronounce it what? Liliana. It was a
Liliana.
wonderful discussion, and I was happy to be a part of that. So it's good to be on with you, and it's great to talk about health and euphoria as opposed to talking about Belichick and coach, all these coaches and stuff that's going on. It's good to be in another world, have another discussion. You know what I mean? So it's a good feeling.
Well, Coach, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. So
Right.
whether you're on the sidelines coaching or Coach Belichick's on the sidelines, you got to have your health.
Right.
And
Right.
but speaking of football, there was a game last night. I watched it. It was the Buffalo Bills hosting the New England Patriots.
Right.
And you told me in past conversations that Coach Belichick is tough to beat.
Coach Belichick is extremely tough to beat. I'd like to say almost impossible, but I can't say that. I think the guy is a genius. I think he's brilliant. I think that people, listen, let me say this to you. I coached, like I told you, basically what you said, Mike, I coached for 40 years. I was an offensive coordinator. And I'll promise you this. I will absolutely promise you this, Mike. I know in my heart, all my years I coached, I was offensive coordinator. I was interim head coach. If I would have done what he did last night in the first half, I think there would have been 15, 20 people would have volunteered to line me up against a wall and shoot me. When I sat down and watched that game last night and saw where Coach Belichick orchestrated a game plan and called the game plan where his quarterback threw one pass in the first half. Man, you talking about a guy that popped the top on a bottle of champagne. That was me. I was so excited to sit there and watch that. Mike, people have always saw me working and coaching. Listen, I played running back in the National Football League. I played running back for the Raiders. John Madden drafted me. It was a ton of fun. I played for Don Shula as a running back. It was a ton of fun. I know how we won most of the games we won. Running the ball, controlling the clock, and play action pass, making some big plays. And that's what I believe in. Now, I spent, I think I spent probably 38 of my 40 years coaching receivers. And I helped to develop some really good receivers, and I love working with them, and it was fun. And people have always seen me as a receiver guy, and they believe I like to throw the ball, throw the ball, throw the ball. My receivers will tell you I love to run the football. It's man on man, and I love it. And last night to watch Coach Belichick run the ball, man, the whole entire first half, throw one pass I got up and got a bottle of champagne and popped the top. It was fantastic. I love it. I love it.
Yeah, Coach, that is so rare. I mean, you think about it. You're absolutely right. I
Yes.
mean, that's amazing
But
to only.
nobody else in the world, nobody else in the world could do that. I promise you now, Mike. Listen, let me tell you something. I don't care how great those offensive coordinators are all over the NFL these days. I'm just telling you now, if some other young guy, myself, or anybody would go out and try that, I promise you. Listen, if I would have ran the ball as much as Coach ran it last night and threw it one time in the first half, I was really good friends with Al Davis, but he might have fired me at halftime. He might have walked down from that owner's box at halftime and fired me. And I promise you this, there'd been a lot of fans all over the world would have been booing. Boo hoo, boo hoo. They've been booing me to get out of the way, get off the field. Coach Belichick do the things he believes he needs to do to win the game. He went in there last night. The weather looked like it was kind of ugly. It's going to be an old school game last night. And man, it was fantastic to watch him hand that thing off. 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, he ran it. I mean, it was phenomenal to watch that guy orchestrate it. And that's why I keep telling people, man, you can say what you want. All you got to do is give him the piece of paper to look at it, and he can design it. And the guy is Picasso. I'm just telling you, he's Picasso of football. He's phenomenal, Mike, and I just love him, man. I love everything about him.
Well, even though he was painting last night,
He was
Coach
painting
Belichick,
last night. He was
he was
painting
painting.
last night, man.
Buffalo still had toward the
Yes.
final minute of the game, they had a chance to win.
Got a chance to win. And again, I think at the end of the day, that's why I always tip my hat to Coach McDermott. I love Sean. I had a chance to work with Coach McDermott. I love Sean. I love the way he orchestrated his thing. I love the way he does his football team. I like Sean. Sean is up in Buffalo. It's a kind of a Buffalo is a hell of a football city, hell of a football town, and I love the way Sean does everything he does and things he goes about it. The two things I'll say about him is when you sit down and look at him, you look at his team. This is me now. I personally believe the team that won last night is going to be in the AFC Championship game. But I do believe that in my heart, I believe New England going to have to play Buffalo for the AFC Championship game. I think one of those two teams is going to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to be Buffalo. I like Coach McDermott. I like the way Coach McDermott go about his business. I like the way he handles his team, communicate with his guys. He is very, very smart. He's got a defensive coordinator in Coach Frazier who's phenomenal. Those guys do a fantastic job. And for them to be back in the game last night at the end, whatever it was, 10 seconds, 4 seconds on the 10-yard line, trying to make a play to win the game. It goes right back to what happened to them that Monday night when they played Tennessee, when they played the Titans in Tennessee. They're sitting there with right there on the 1-yard line, 4th and 1 on the 1. If we score, we win the game. It's over. He went for it. Quarterback slipped. He just didn't get his footing, and they lost it. But it shows you how strong they are. It shows you how good they are. It shows you how deep they are. And they just got to keep on and keep going. Again, I believe those two teams last night going to play in the AFC Championship game. One of them going to go to the Super Bowl, and I think it's going to be Buffalo Bills.
And Coach, from the National Football League, do you think Tom Brady could make another run?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Listen, I don't think Tom Brady is going to be. I don't think he'll be done. I don't think he'll be exhausted. I don't think he'll be done. I think he'll be done when his wife says he's done. When his wife come out and say, "Hey, I got enough of this stuff. I got enough of you. Come on, let's go." Then he go say, "Okay, I got enough." Tom might be playing. Tom will be sitting here at 51, 52, 53. You know what I mean? And I think, at some point in time, they'll start getting to him a little bit because he can't move. Somebody will go and knock out a couple of his teeth, but he'll come from the dentist's office, go put in his fake teeth, his false teeth, go back and play. He'll still be going. He'll be 51, 52 years old. He'll still be going. You know what I mean? But he won't leave until his wife says, "Okay, I got enough. Come on home. Let's go raise the kids and let's go out and pasture me and you." Then he'll say, "Okay, I got enough. I'm done." Yeah. But I think I'll tell you this: the NFL. People say what they want. The NFL is sitting around every day. I bet you Roger Goodell enjoyed last night. He had a blast with last night watching it. It was fantastic. But every day, I think those guys are sitting down with their feet crossed, their leg crossed, their finger crossed, and everybody is praying to God that it's a New England Patriot, Tampa Bay Buccaneers Super Bowl. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, Mike? Listen, as powerful as you are, as great a guy as you are, and even your buddy Alex on the other end. I don't know if the two of you guys will be able to find a ticket to go to that game. It'll be packed. The house would be packed. The new stadium, Sofitel, Los Angeles, California. It'd be the what it'd be? It'd be the greatest show on earth. Bill Belichick versus Tom Brady. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
Unbelievable.
yeah, it would be nice to see, but I would like to see the Bills because as we know they had that run in the '90s, um,
Right. Right.
four straight Super
Right.
Bowls with Jim Kelly, and they had some
Right.
great players, Thurman
Right.
Thomas, and
Right.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that'll ever happen where you have 4 years in a row going to a Super Bowl,
Right.
and
That will never happen again in the history of professional football. And I used to tell my young guys all the time when I was coaching, people could say what they want. That organization at that time, they built that team, and that was Bill Polian. Bill did a fantastic job, and I told people I think that was the greatest show on earth at that time, the Buffalo Bills, and for them to go to 4 Super Bowls in a row is unbelievable. I think LeBron James said it best when he said, "You don't just sit down and measure the greatness of a team or a player by how many rings he wins, how many rings on his finger. You measure him by his accomplishment." And I think that's the biggest thing. We all kind of, I think we all kind of pushed that on the back burner because they went to 4 and they lost all 4. But I think it is unheard of, and it will never happen again. I don't think it'll ever happen again in my lifetime, but it will never happen again that any team will turn around and go to 4. I mean, go to 4 straight Super Bowls. I don't think it'll ever happen again in life. I just don't.
Well, speaking of championships, Coach, we've got the final 4 teams in the college football,
Yeah, college football, yeah.
and I would love to see Michigan versus Cincinnati in the final, but Coach, I gotta believe your SEC teams, Georgia and Alabama. What are your thoughts about that matchup?
Well, again, I think you said it already. I think you said it best. That SEC, that SEC is hard, man. That's it's a hard deal. And I think the thing about it is this, Mike. I think it's kind of like, it's like baseball more or less. It's baseball. They've got the majors, they got the majors, and then they got the minor league. And listen, those other schools are pretty good, and they compete and they play hard. Michigan, Ohio State, those schools are great. Got great programs. Been great for a long time. But I think it's an uphill battle now when they meet my SEC schools. And listen, I had an opportunity to experience that firsthand. Whatever year, maybe it's 2007, I think 2007, 2006. I had to go sit down in the Superdome in New Orleans and watch Ohio State play my LSU Tigers. My son Brian Robiskie is playing for Ohio State. They go to the national championship game and they're playing against LSU. And I never forget it. I never forget when they won the game. They won the game, and that was going to put them in the national championship game. And I was at home late at night, and Brian called me, and he says, "Yeah, Daddy, yep, we got your Tigers. We got them LSU Tigers for the national championship game. We get ready to beat that A." I said, "Oh, okay, all right." I said, "Son, you know what they always tell you? Be careful when you grab a tiger by the tail. Them cats are hard to deal with now." And we went down to New Orleans. I had a blast. Went down there, stayed down at the hotel. I had a fantastic time with all my buddies, all my family. A lot of my family members went to the game, and then everybody wanted to know. It was just amazing seeing a lot of my friends walking around with them LSU jerseys on. Some people had LSU jerseys, Robiskie on the back, and people, who you pulling for? Who you pulling for? I said, well, I like LSU. But I love my son. I love him. So, but he found out firsthand. Be careful. Go flying down there with that SC school. Be careful. And listen, Michigan. I believe again now. It goes by accomplishment. I believe Michigan has got one of the best football coaches to ever coach football. I think Coach Harbaugh is one of the best who's ever done it at any level, college or professional. I think he's one of the best coaches that has ever coached football. But I also believe that guy that down at Alabama is probably the best college football coach to ever coached college football. And I put him in that category with Belichick. Him and Coach Belichick are friends, and I put him in that category. I've coached against Nick for a long time, and I think he is incredible. I think he's phenomenal. The guy's a good coach, man. He's a good coach, and they know what they're doing. So, and I don't want to, I'm not trying to put a damper on Cincinnati, and certainly, Georgia belong in that. They all belong in it. All 4 of them made it. They deserve it. I think Coach Fickle is a good coach. He came from that Ohio State deal. I think he might have been at Ohio State right there after Brian left. And anybody, to me, anybody, as they say, anybody that has coached and worked at the Ohio State University is pretty darn good. You got to pat your back to them. They're pretty darn good. So for him to go to Cincinnati and do what he's done, he deserved to be in it. He deserved to be in it. But again, like I said, they've got to be careful. They've got to be careful. They've gone to the SEC and they've grabbed the two of the best. They grab a tiger. They grab a tiger by his tail. That'll be a tough one if they had that one. But they got a Georgia Bulldog this week. They got a Georgia Bulldog, and they got that other guy that Crimson Tide. That's two hard guys to beat, man. Again, I just firmly believe. I just really believe in my heart. I think it's two or three teams in the NFL that Alabama could beat. If Alabama just give them a week or so, give Nick 2 weeks to prepare. There's a couple of teams in the NFL they could meet. They could meet in the national championship game, and they could beat them. I mean, I think they're just that good. So it's going to be a great deal. It's going to be great for fans. I love it. It's going to be a fantastic time, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. Well, it's as we talked about, Coach, there's a changing landscape of college football, and the SEC is building up I think an organization that reminds me of the American Football League in 1960. Mm-hmm. When the American Football League started, you had the NFL,
right,
and then the little AFL started up,
right.
And I just see there's some similarities there, Coach.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's what it is. What would they call it? It seemed like the SEC is creating this big conglomerate. They just want to dominate it. They want to be, like I said in baseball, they want to be the major league, and in their mind, everybody else is going to be in the minor league. But like I said, football is a great business. It's a great occupation. It's a great thing to be in. But let me say this to you, Mike. Just like myself, there's a lot of coaches that spend a lot of time studying the game, looking at the game, preparing the game, understanding the game, and knows the game. And there's a lot of coaches out there, just like there's a lot of great players out there that don't always get to go play and do it. There's a lot of coaches who are very good coaches, they don't get the publicity. They don't get the recognition. A lot of us, like myself, don't get the chance to prove it. But at the end of the day, we all coach the same thing. One of the greatest quotes, Mike, I've ever heard in my life was, and I got it in my briefcase, I still carry it today, was a guy named Coach Fossil. Jim Fossil was a fantastic coach, was a great head coach, was a great assistant coach. Jim Fossil put it as good as I've ever remembered when he said, there is no geniuses coaching football. He said there's a bunch of PE grads coaching a bunch of PE grads. Let's be honest about it. And the one thing I'll say is the guys today that's making $100 million that's getting labeled geniuses, they're gonna run into one of these PE grads. They're gonna run into one of these PE grads that's gonna whip the shit out of them. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be a good time. But like I said, Mike, even though the SEC is creating this big conglomerate and try to get everybody on top, it's gonna be some guys they're gonna go meet who are really good coaches that they'll think that's in the minor league, and they'll come up and whip the crap out of them. And that makes for the excitement. That makes for the fun of it. Make for it all a great game. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. That's why they say you don't play the game on paper. You play it on the field. Let's go play.
Yeah. Well, Coach, I'm so happy that we could talk about, college football, professional football. And you know what's really exciting? I had the opportunity to introduce you to a man that has really had a huge impact on me. I've known him not as long as I've known you. You and I first met in 1983.
Right.
When we were both with the Raiders.
Right.
But this gentleman, it was my first job out of graduate school, and I met him. And this was 30 years ago, actually, 1991. We met, and we both worked for the same company. And he is arguably, in my opinion, he's probably one of the brightest people I know on this planet. Right. And I had the opportunity to introduce him to you, right, because you have a company, right, that Coffee Helmets, right, that, the great quarterback from USC was MVP in the Rose Bowl. Yep. And then he played many years in the National Football League, Vince Evans.
Yep, Vince Evans.
Yes. And I connected Alex Von Allman with
Yeah.
you, and I'm going to bring Alex in right now and bring Alex in. There he is. Alex, how are you, brother?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Mike, and thanks, Terry.
Good
Oh,
morning,
so
Alex. How you
fun.
doing? Good seeing you again.
Good seeing you.
And Alex, you have a company, Alex, that you started back, gosh, I don't know how many years ago, over 2 decades ago, called Brand Mother, right, Alex?
That's correct. Yes.
And Brand Mother has grown. I mean, I think you have the companies that you've touched have done over how many billions of dollars?
Yeah, when I calculated it up, since we did projects with them, they've done a collectively $4 billion plus
Wow.
and moving upwards.
Wow.
I wish I had more of that, share of that, but it's been really quite a journey, and I get a kick out of helping business owners, in particular entrepreneurs, visionaries,
Yeah.
and it's been a lot of fun.
Wow.
Yeah, and Alex, and then you are truly an entrepreneur, and something that it's very interesting, Coach. Alex about 7 years ago asked me, he said, "Mike, do you know yourself?" And I said, "What are you talking about? Of course I know myself. My name's Mike Dotterer. I, I, I went to school in California, and I met Coach Robiskie, and we won a Super Bowl, and now I'm working. Yes, of course I know myself." And he said, "No, Mike, you got to understand what I mean by that. Is have you ever heard of Myers-Briggs?" And I said, "Well, I've heard of Oscar Mayer, the hot dog."
Right.
and, and Alex said, "No, no, 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 no. This is a survey that was developed by a couple, mother and daughter, back in the 1930s, and they were followers of Carl Jung." And I said, "Oh, well, that's interesting. Maybe I did take that survey someday. I don't remember it." He said, "Well, Mike, you should take a look at this." And this was about 7, 8 years ago. And I'll tell you, that changed my life because Alex took his knowledge, taught me, shared it with me, and started a company called Zodian, Coach. And Zodian is a survey that makes it easier and fun to know what your Myers-Briggs typology is. Alex, do you want to talk a little bit about that and share this with Coach Robiskie? Because I don't think we know what Coach Robiskie's Zodian is.
Yeah, I don't think we've gone there yet. We will. Okay, so one of the things is we all have preferences. We have go-tos, and I about 90% of us are right-handed, and 10% are left-handed, and a really small minority is ambidextrous. And so when you go and you pick up a pencil or pen to write, most right-handed people immediately go to their right hand. And I could argue the same is for certain kinds of behaviors, that we are running operating systems or software internally, and they're natural preferences. And there's nothing wrong with this. We tend to go to our right hand first. We tend to, do that. And so but when you become really aware of the preferences that you're running, it makes a big difference, because you all of a sudden begin becoming really aware that your neighbor or your guy next to you is not running the same operating system that you are. And so that was the huge insight, because I would be, why can't you see this? It's easy for, and people would go, no, I don't see it. So I was familiar with Myers-Briggs, and it's kind of complex. There's 16 different styles, and a, a lot of people, I'll ask them, well, did you ever take the Myers-Briggs? And they go, well, yeah, I did several years ago. And I said, well, do you remember what your preference was? And the majority of the time they say, well, I'm a EI something. They don't really remember it. And part of the reason for that is that they took it as part of a job interview, or they did it really quickly, and it never sunk in. They never owned it. They never really thought about it. They said, oh, I just need to do this to get my job or whatever. But Myers-Briggs is extremely predictive, and there are other assessments that, can top onto that. In fact, I know a guy that predicts quarterbacks using a similar kind of tool. and he knows he's gone in and looked at a number of top players, and there are certain styles that really work for certain kinds of players, and then so they optimize on it.
Well, that brings up a story. Coach Robiskie might know this. Bobby Beathard, coach, as you know, was the general manager for the Chargers, and they drafted a quarterback out of Washington State. What was his name? The quarterback that great quarterback. And they drafted him, and
first round.
Yeah, first round. And
Yes.
any event, there was a gentleman who was familiar with personalities in Myers-Briggs, and he knew what this quarterback's personality was. And he begged Bobby Beathard. He said, "Bobby, don't draft him. You're going to have trouble." And coach, this is about personality. Certain quarterbacks, like for example, John Elway, who I played for in college. I played with John. John's personality is actually very similar, I believe, to Joe Montana's personality, meaning they get energy from their alone time. They're linear, pragmatic. When they start their decision making, they start with an analytical approach. And when they drop back to pass, they can go with the flow. They can go, okay, progression. He's not open to go like this. So they don't lock in. And that personality, coach, do you find that certain positions, there's certain personalities that are successful, coach?
I don't know if to sit down and say that. I don't know if I could sit down and say, Mike, that is one kind of a personality that's successful. I haven't studied it as much as you guys have. Certainly not as much as Alex have. But I couldn't really sit down and say this guy's personality compared to that guy's personality, he's going to be more successful. I don't know the answer to that. I've seen success come from, in my time doing it, I've seen success come from a various amount of personalities. You know what I mean? And I'll give you two examples because there have been two very successful guys. Tim Brown to me sound like what you're describing with Joe Montana and John Elway. That would have been a Tim Brown or possibly a James Lofton, another Stanford guy. Those two guys would have matched those two quarterbacks. Now I could give you a Roddy White or Julio Jones, who Roddy White probably will be in the Hall of Fame in the next year or so. Those guys' personality was way on the other side of the spectrum. They were different people, different guys, But I think, the guys I've had over the years, I could tell you I've seen, again, I've never put paper and pencil to it. Like Alex said, I've never grabbed that pen with a right hand or left hand, but I've been able to be around those guys and say, this guy is really, really successful because of this, because of that. The one thing I can tell you is they all had that desire to win, no matter whether it was a Tim personality or Elway personality. Like Kenny Stabler would have been quite different from a John Elway or Joe Montana, but those two guys would not have been able to compete with him for his ability to, or his desire to win, and that's the one thing I can tell you about all of them, regardless of personality, is that fire that burns so high, that light that's so bright to win, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that's the one thing I could say.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I do know Tom Brady. I believe, Alex, Tom Brady is a Pegasus, which is an ENFP, which is obviously different than a Joe Montana or a John Elway.
John Elway.
And I think, Coach, you hit the nail on the head. The intangible of the desire to win, your desire. Yeah. And then, Coach, also getting lucky. I believe Tom Brady got lucky because he got linked up with Bill Belichick.
No question. Yeah, no question.
And by the way, that's a classic matchup. The ENFP and probably the INTJ, the master strategist, they actually are a fairly classic matchup. You find that in personal relationships as well. So I actually believe that one of Tom Brady's superpowers is his ability to connect to his team members.
Right.
It's his network of people, and he can pull them in. And that's not necessarily on the field. That is like, hey, people want to connect with him, and that's a big part of it. Right. So
the one thing I'll piggyback on that, Alex, is that is another thing that I'll say to you, another trait that I'll say to you. I've seen all successful guys have the ability to, like you said, to connect with people and connect with their teammates, connect with their guys, not just on the field, not just in the locker room, down the street at Publix, at the neighborhood bar, wherever it is. They've all had that ability to connect with their teammates and their players. That's one thing I'd say. I agree with you 1,000%.
Yeah. So there are probably 8 billion people on this planet, and there are 8 billion personalities. I want to first say that we're all individuals.
Right.
But
We
what
have,
I just,
we have Alex. We have the different DNA, right? Everyone has their
Yes.
unique.
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
but,
Yes.
but, I, I looked at Myers-Briggs, I looked at DISC, I looked at a number of temperament sorters, and I was fascinated by them because it helped explain why people acted in certain ways. Why, you can correlate them to things like political party or, to profession or a number of things or correlations there. And but one of going back to it, no one remembered what their style was. It was too complex. There's 16 different styles. And so one day I had this revelation. I said, well, the ancient Greeks had 4 elements. They had earth, water, fire, and air. And I said, could Myers-Briggs correlate to these ancient elements? And, it was almost instantaneous. I got back, from that question. I said, yes, absolutely. And so I started categorizing the different Myers-Briggs into 4 categories: earth, water, fire, and air. And then the next idea, I said, well, could I come up with animals or symbols for each of these, um, styles that were somewhat reflective of that? And that was right away. I got 10 to 12 of the styles were just obvious to me. For example, there's one style, the ISTJ, which is a really hardworking, diligent style. They're smart, they're great citizens, they work hard, and I thought, wow, what animal embodies that? And so the beaver came to mind, and I thought about it a little more. I said, yes, that they're smart, they're building things. A lot of them are engineers. They build dams and they build other highways. And so uh, beaver became like the animal symbol for ISTJ. And then I looked at others. There were about 3 or 4 that were really difficult for me. I meditated on it, and I thought about it a lot, and I wrote down hundreds of animal types. And one that I thought was that I struggled with was um, an introverted, sensing, feeling perceiver. And we can go more into that. They got their energy from being by themselves. They were internal feelers. They had strong feelings. They were practical, pragmatic, and they were go with the flow. And there's an inordinate percentage of these people that are artistic. A lot of the pop stars like Lady Gaga or Michael Jackson or Justin Timberlake are known to be this preference. And they are very independent at heart, and they love to express who they are and their thoughts and their stories through song and poetry and other things. And that was a tough one for me. I knew it had to be a water animal. And I went back and I looked at lionfish. I thought, well, that's an exotic fish. And I looked at angelfish. And then I finally settled on rays. And rays, the more I learned about the ray, they're graceful and they live in, there's a ray in Mexico, in the Gulf of Mexico, that literally jumps out of the water and flaps its wings like a big bat and then lands. So the ray became my symbol for that particular style. And so anyway, the ultimate goal was to create a new astrology. And I'm not a big believer in astrology. I think it's fun. I think it was the first attempt. It's 2,000 years old. Probably time for a change. Probably time to make do something that's really constructive. And the biggest problem I believe we have, or one of the biggest problems, is relationships. It's really important to most people that they have strong personal and professional relationships. And the quality of your life is going to be based on the quality of relationships ultimately. And so here we are, and we don't have a navigation system. We're all different, and we don't have a way to navigate these relationships easily. And so the idea here was, hey, once I know who I am and I honor that, and I would say go as far as I love who I am, and then I can look at other people with compassion. I can look at how I can navigate, through them, and I can start speaking their language when I need to. If I'm pie in the sky, that's not going to work for someone that's very pragmatic. Their eyes are going to glaze over. Or if I'm too go with the flow, that's not going to work for someone that's structured and organized. And so, anyway, that was my intent. I'm really excited because people like Michael, and I have other friends that have been aware of this system, and they've been using it. And they're just super excited about it too, because they're out there in the laboratory. We joke, we're kind of like Jane Goodall with the apes, experimenting, in the real world, and we're trying to figure out, how does this work, and and why do I get along so well with one person and I struggle with another one? There are some people that are a little skeptical about this, and really the way I look at it is, I'm an ENTP, and in my system, it's called a griffin. It's half eagle, half lion. It's a mythological character. And, I know one of my strengths, superpowers, is that, I can be between worlds. I can look at, kind of what's not there yet and pull it into the real world. And I have tons of kryptonite. I will tell you that. We all do. And, this system has made me more aware of the areas where I'm not as strong. And so I can complement myself with people that are, really good in that area. It takes a village, it takes a team,
Right.
To win a game.
Right.
And so it's really a combination of skills. It's coaches, it's quarterbacks, it's linemen, it's everybody.
Right.
And when they're all doing their job well and they're in the right positions, it's magic. And I think half the battle is finding the right team members, on things, and relating to them and using their superpowers and trying to minimize the kryptonite that's around. So one other way of looking at it, I mentioned that many of us are right-handed and some are left-handed. And those, I think I'm advantaged because I came from a marketing background, and market segmentation is really important in marketing. You have to figure out who you're trying to reach. And I joke about it that I'm a RSWM. Those are my initials. I'm right-handed. I'm single. I'm white, and I'm male. All right. And so I know that, okay, right-handed people are 90% of the population and males are 50% of the population, and I can go in there. I probably, in that category, I'm probably around 10% of the population, but it helps me understand, where I'm coming from. And it's really a segmentation tool that helps us build more discernment. And, I would love to believe, I think personality is phenomenal, and it's not superficial. It goes to more of the core of someone, who they are, and I'd rather, look at beneath the skin or whatever and see someone's personality and their gifts and things like that. So that is ultimate diversity, by the way, is in organizations when you have a diversity of personalities. They're not all thinking one way. That's really, I think, the benefit of this kind of thing, and, we need balance in our organizations, and we need, people from all different styles. And so Yeah, Zodian.com is the website, and we are, if you go there, you can take a survey and get your animal and figure out what it is, and it's meant to be fun. Yeah, and so
Yeah. Well, we've got it flashing down there at the bottom, Zodian.com, and you can go to that site.
Right.
Coach, you can go and find out what archetype you are. You might be a lion. You could be an eagle. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I don't know if all of you know, Coach Robiskie was a quarterback in high school.
Yep.
And for all those schools out there, Vanderbilt is one of them, Coach. When you said it's tough to win at Vanderbilt, I truly believe they get the right coach, just like the Green Bay Packers got the right coach in 1960.
Right.
I remember watching a documentary.
Yes.
And Coach Lombardi's daughters, she didn't know because he was coaching for the New York Giants, and he said, "Hey, looks like we're gonna move to Green Bay." And Coach Lombardi's daughter said, "Where's Green Bay?" And he said, "Well, when I get there, you'll know where Green Bay is." And
one of my favorite lines is, "Gentlemen, this is a football."
Yes. Yes.
Well,
yes.
I truly believe this. I truly believe, Alex, that if Coach Robiskie were given the leadership at your alma mater, Vanderbilt, he could turn it into a winning organization. I truly believe that, Coach. I believe that.
Well, I certainly believe it too, Mike. And they say the greatest investment we can make is to invest in ourselves. And I believe in that too. I really do.
Well, that's it. And so any event, we've been on the dot. We're setting a record here, Coach Robiskie. We've been on the dot, Coach Robiskie and Alex von Ullman on the dot for, let's see here, it tells you exactly 41 minutes.
Yes.
What we like to do on the dot is we like to go out with the guests and with the special guests. So Coach Robiskie, you get the last word, and then you can hand it off to Alex.
Okay.
And, so, Coach, you get the last word, and then you hand it off to Alex, and we'll be out.
The only thing I'll say, Mike, in closing, of course, I've had fun. It's been a great show, Alex. I'm glad to come on the show with you. I think it's because of you we've gone overtime. So, Mike, you have to pay me double time. When you start paying me, I got to get double time, okay? All right, Alex, let's go. You can take over.
Hey, Mike and Coach Robiskie, it's been an absolute pleasure being a part of this, and it's so much fun. And I just appreciate being here.